Coming up on Coming Out of the Cosmic Closet, we have Reuben Langdon.
Woohoo!
Woohoo!
Yay.
Meow! Pussycats. Meow. He's a stunt guy.
Mm-hmm.
He does a lot of video games. He was the stunt double for Jake Sully in Avatar.
Yep. I think we're at this point in our disclosure reality now with the Navy coming out and everything these past few weeks.
Wait, what's happened with the Navy? They said they saw some ships?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. The Navy officially said last week, 2 weeks ago, that they're going to pay more attention to UFOs, to pilots reporting UFOs.
Oh, cool.
And make it easier for them to report on them
And
and all
not
this stuff.
get shamed.
And not get shamed.
Yeah.
The Navy and these trained pilots, still active duty, are now being allowed to talk about these experiences.
Right.
And we have gun
They're not
camera
getting
footage
shoved.
being released by the Pentagon.
Everyone has a special gift. Mine? The Circle of Light. They speak through me, and they're here to assist the planet's evolution to a more enlightened space. And for some reason, they chose me, a raunchy comedian, to be their vessel. I used to be secretive about my ability, but now it's time to come out of the cosmic closet, and you should too. My name is Georgia Jean, and these are my crazy stories. Welcome, excited adventurers, down into the rabbit hole of extreme new reality. Extreme. Welcome back to Coming Out of the Cosmic Closet. I'm here with my darling co-host, Madame Melissa Ritigliano of
TheMarsLab.com.
How you doing?
I'm good.
Good.
Day one.
Get day one. Oh, okay. Fox talk.
Day one of what?
My cycle.
Oh,
Melissa's
Got
very
it.
into the cycles.
Yes.
She's into the circles, cycles, crystals phenomena. Yeah. Do you want to say something about that?
Not really.
Not really. Okay.
It's day one. I think I made it pretty clear where I stand today.
Okay.
But
But
we're also here with Georgia Jean.
we're here with Georgia Jean of CircleEvolution.com. And we have our very first exciting guest coming to join us in the show. We have Reuben Langdon.
woohoo!
Woohoo!
Yay.
Meow! Pussycats. Meow. Reuben is awesome. I met Reuben when we did the 5D open door retreat on Big Island, Hawaii. It was about a year ago.
Almost exactly a year ago.
Yeah, weird how you're back.
Mm-hmm.
The vortex has swiveled you back,
That's it.
back here.
Let's talk about cycles.
Yeah, exactly. Circles, cycles, crystals. I think we've got them all here.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Reuben is awesome. He is he's a stunt guy.
Mm-hmm.
He does a lot of video games. He was the stunt double for Jake Sully in Avatar.
Yep.
And he's really into the cosmic
The cosmic
flora.
closet.
Yeah, he's way out of the cosmic closet.
Yes.
Actually, a lot more out of the cosmic closet. Reuben has a fantastic series of documentaries. He's a beautiful filmmaker, and he's done a wonderful series of documentaries about people like myself, other strange people who get into the channeled state and get some messages about everything. So I thought he'd be really fun, just so everybody knows I'm not the only weirdo out there.
Yeah. I get this is sort of reverse for me. I usually do. I'm usually the one interviewing,
You're
and
the weirdo?
you're interviewing me now. So
Yeah,
it's-
that's right. I'm putting you in the hot seat.
exactly.
Hot seat. Reuben, when did you start coming out of the cosmic closet?
Publicly or
Yeah, publicly.
Oh, okay, publicly.
Well, let's go with that. Publicly. When did you really come out of the cosmic closet?
2010.
2010. Okay.
It was after a Stephen Greer CE5 event. Are you familiar with CV5?
No, you have to
No.
fill
Okay,
us in.
so
As crystal nerds.
Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind basically
Oh,
means where instead of, I think I forget who coined the phrase. Maybe it was J. Allen Hynek, who was the inspiration for Close Encounters of the Third Kind,
Okay.
the movie.
Yeah.
Mhm.
He was one of the advisors for Spielberg, and he came out of Project Blue Book, the Air Force program that was studying the UFO phenomenon for several years.
Right.
And then they sort of closed the case. And
Close the blue book.
They closed the blue book and said it was all just swamp gas and whatnot.
Right.
But Hynek himself, who had been part of the program for several years,
Right.
said no, there's something more to this.
Right.
And he sort of came out of the closet,
even
though he was sort of ordered by the Air Force to debunk it all.
Right. Oh, really? Interesting.
To sort of say it's all swamp gases. What you're seeing is not real.
Right.
And he was like, no, there's something to this.
Right.
And I'm going to continue to do my research. So he...
and he's still alive?
No, unfortunately, he died. I related or unrelated to, his coming out of the closet. I don't think it was related, but he had two sons who both worked on, coincidentally, the film I worked on, Avatar.
Whoa.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that
Whoa.
wacky and
more
weird?
circles.
And then, so I met them, not knowing who their father was.
Whoa.
Right. And not even knowing, all this stuff on set.
On set? What were they doing on set?
Just CGI stuff,
Okay.
Making things work with all the computers and stuff.
Right.
And later it turns out, once I find out who J. Allen Hynek is, the great researcher, I'm like, then I give them a call. I'm like, guys, you never told me. Like,
right.
Well, we don't share that with
They're
everybody.
in the cosmic closet a little bit too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we, at the time I was doing an ET meetup group in my office on Tuesdays. It's like, you got to come and be a guest speaker.
Right.
So we had both of them at different times.
Right.
Come and speak about their father, their adventures, being influenced by all of the woo-woo crazy talk, and how they're both still prolific in Hollywood as sort of high-end special effects artists and
Interesting. Do they do a lot of cosmic special effects artistry? Do you notice that they end up in those projects, which is something we want to get into?
they both ended up on Avatar.
Right.
So
right. Yeah.
So going back to what we were talking about, the CE5.
This convention.
So Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. So I think third kind is sort of like ET initiated contact.
I don't even know what they all are. Can you run through it? Do you know the numbers?
It's sort of vague. I had at one point I knew this.
Right. At what point do you put your tinfoil hat on and go?
Yes. Yeah. It's all tinfoil hat stuff.
Yeah.
But fifth kind is basically where you initiate contact.
Okay.
So Stephen Greer would lead these groups. For decades he's been doing this. And it's gotten quite popular, where you go out into the woods or you go out into the field in some clear area at night and sit in a circle.
Like a known active location
Portal,
or just anywhere?
It could be anywhere.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
just
Okay.
Just like, hey, UFO date.
Yeah.
Text me when you're on the way.
You pick. Yeah, there's Facebook groups.
Right.
I'm sure in Hawaii, you just look up CE5 Facebook group.
Okay.
And you go out and he sort of made these protocols for contact, and you sit in meditation, and he likes to play crop circle sounds and
getting freaky with the frequencies.
Getting freaky with all the frequencies, and I've even got my whole kit. I carry everywhere I go: my night vision goggles and my laser pointer.
Right.
That you see something, you point to it, and you can use your night vision goggles to really get good, clear views.
Wow.
And then you sit in a circle so everybody has a different view of the sky.
Right.
And then you sort of do like a 20, 30-minute meditation, call them in, and then most of the time when I've done this, I've gotten stuff. I've gotten freaky lights.
You've got freaky lights.
Freaky lights in the sky. So if that's why everybody's like, oh, I want to see a UFO. I'm like, okay, just go do a CE5, and chances are you're going to see something.
Wow. So when you see them, because being a channel, I see shimmers, right? But I'm not actually that visual with this thing. And often I'm like, oh my God, I wish you would just show up in my room, and then I would see you and we could have a chat. Usually it'd be about my love life, because most of them I'd be like, is this really happening? I want practical help from these people, Sure. But when, I've talked a lot in the show that when you're going through your initiations, there's definitely a period where you feel like you're going a bit mad, and there's all these different things that are happening. And sometimes I would love to just, instead of the energies coming through me where it's always questionable about when my psychology is just doing something so nutty, it'd be lovely to just see them and be like, okay, what's the deal? And what's the deal with the guy while we're at it,
Yeah.
But what have you seen? You've seen lights. Have you seen forms, figures?
Mostly lights.
Yeah.
Greer on his website and stuff they have some pictures and things where they claim these are actually, etheric beings showing up in the spots. I'm going to a contact retreat led by Lisa Royale in September, and she's had some wild experiences at her retreats. This last retreat I did with her in Japan in October, we had a ship fly over the Biwako Lake.
Wow.
That everybody saw.
Everyone saw.
So, except for her. She actually, we were sort of out there doing more internal meditation work, and then everybody went inside, and there was a group of about 6 people that stood behind, and I'm really good at just spotting them.
Yeah.
I get like a knock on the head.
Yeah.
And they say, look over here.
Over here.
And I look, there's the UFO. And then everybody sees it. And it's nice confirmation
when everybody sees it. And that's really what makes me believe what I do, is that other people confirm back to me the energy that they feel when I do my thing. So do people see the same stuff when you talk about it, or is it no?
I was actually just out last night before last, with this group. I was heading from Japan. We were out. We went we've done 8 hard days of traveling all throughout Hawaii, and
You're out here doing pre-work on a video game,
doing some sound recordings and picture taking of video game stuff, and some of the crew had just going at it so hard that they never had time to even go in the water. Right? And they were like, before we leave Hawaii, we want to go in the water. So it was like 2 a.m. and like, okay, let's go to the beach, and took them to Waikiki, and we all jumped in the water.
Oh my gosh.
Nice.
And everybody had some little bit to drink except for me. And the clouds were moving, and the way they were moving, it looked like the stars were craft moving forward.
Right,
and I thought it was like this.
Something's going to reveal.
So it was just for a second. I looked up and I'm like, UFO! And then everybody's like, whoa! And they're like, this is happening, And I'm like, yeah, finally, these guys who don't really believe in UFOs are getting, and they're all like, here it is. And they're all getting super excited. And then I keep looking, I'm like, oh, no, I think it's the stars, guys. Sorry. And they're like, no, but I saw it swirl and had the blue lights and this. And I was like,
wow.
And then another guy said, yeah, me too. And I'm like, all right, I'm just keeping my mouth shut.
Yeah. Well, you had that?
And this, it does all come back to that whole sort of psychological influence of what we're experiencing and perception. And I mean, at the end of the day, when we talk about, are these things real? What is reality? I mean, reality only really exists through the portal of our minds and what we allow ourselves to experience. So the circle that I channel would sort of bring this all back to, I think that, at the end of the day, we are just all one energy, and it's the game you want to play in your reality. Like, it's a game that you want to experience, but it's how deeply people allow themselves to open up to this possibility of some other kind of multi-dimensional interactive thing actually happening will depend on how visceral, I think, their experience of that is. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So have
you ever seen some real hardheads just crack and be like,
well, yeah. I mean, just at the beach the other night, and they were all like really into it. And even when I told them, guys, I think it's just the stars. Sorry, I miscalled it. Yeah. They were still, I mean, obviously I had some dreams too, so that helped. But they were like, in the next morning, they're like, oh, we saw UFO. And I'm like,
sweet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I even said, I think they were stars, but, and I'm the UFO guy.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I think they were stars, but let's just go with it. You know, they were absolutely convinced. So, that's why I love, Bashar's quote, all truths are true.
Right.
And I use that. That's like my motto for life.
Right.
Because then it doesn't invalidate anybody's experience.
Right, totally.
And by not doing that, you can live a fuller life of this being in a state of awe.
Yeah. That's exactly it. Because if you allow that, then life really does start being a lot more magical and be in that state of awe. You have magic in your life in a way that wasn't present before.
And I think that is the key. And I think, whether it's ETs or whatever, whatever your belief system is, we can go down many woo-woo paths.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I feel that one of my greatest discovery in this life so far is this being in this constant state of awe.
Right. Yeah.
Because it's just magical when these things happen. When you get, when you have a conversation with the circle, or you have an actual a dream about. I had this dream, Al Haleakala, of going into portals and seeing this mist thing. Like that to me, and validating that is not just a dream, but as a real experience of me, of my ethereal body going into, Haleakala's portals.
Haleakala is the volcano on Maui, where Reuben was before he was here. Yeah.
And it's just magical. Yeah. Like and you wake up and you're like, wow. And it just gives you a new sense of perspective of walking in this, what many people could say mundane life. Yeah. But it takes the mundane out of it.
It takes the mundane. And I definitely have periods where I know I am just so in the magic zone. And it's just like, everything is just lining up. And then other times, I'll be right in the illusion of the mind and feeling very unmagical and really, my work is always when I work with my clients, it's always pretty energetic and interesting. But when for me, sort of all the theory that I get from the circle, and then I actually start seeing it really operating like this kind of magic vortex, it does make life so much more uplifting. Yeah. And that's the whole thing, is like, at the end of the day, are people feeling happier? Are they empowered by these experiences? Are they getting more joy out of life?
Yeah, that's also sort of my biggest message when I go and do talks and stuff. I said, look, if at any time anything I say is disempowering or making you scared or putting, please tune out. Yeah. Because I love the peanut butter. I love I call it peanut butter.
What is the peanut butter?
Well, it's DPB. I'm, is this podcast? Is this like
you can
languages?
Swear if you want.
Okay.
Yeah, totally.
So, my buddy.
Sometimes you have to drop the F-bomb because it's so fucking crazy what's happening.
Exactly. So my buddy Jeremy Corbell, who's my colleague and documentary filmmaker and is doing amazing work. His mom used to say, Jeremy, You're DPB. Your dick is in the peanut butter. You're fucking nuts. So
yeah, Mom.
So I sort of have adapted that.
Okay, that's funny. I like that. Yeah.
And I'm fucking nuts, so it's okay. And I'm the kinder way to say it is I'm just deep in the peanut butter.
Yeah, deep in the peanut. Now I'm with
going for a swing.
Now I'm like thinking dirty peanut.
Yeah, just
dirty peanut.
Okay, so you came out of the cosmic closet in 2010.
After that, was that experience just so profound? You're like, I'm not going to pretend this isn't happening anymore?
Well, I had my initial sight in 2007.
Okay, yeah, because
when you were cosmic.
Yeah, when did you go from just total, I believe in the 5 physical senses to, maybe more? I mean,
it was definitely a gradual
thing.
Peeling off the onion layers.
Yeah.
And in 2006-ish, YouTube was just coming out and I was working on Avatar. I was playing a Na'vi, I'm playing an alien.
Right.
Which for me was just a role. It was just a thing.
But you weren't like, whoa, this is cool. I'm playing something.
Well, I knew it was cool, but I didn't.
I mean, it was cool, obviously.
But it was not. It was not like
cosmically cool, yeah.
Cosmically cool in the sense that I believe this.
Yeah.
Like this is reality.
Just turned it on, turned it off.
This was just.
He was just like playing a role.
I was just playing a role.
Yeah, got
like
this job.
An actor.
Sure.
On working with James Cameron, just super psyched about all that.
Yeah.
And a cool like science fiction story.
Yeah.
So.
But very much science fiction at that point.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And we're learning about, Cameron told us to learn about indigenous cultures because all the Na'vi are based on we had posters and paintings and pictures covering the studio of all these different indigenous cultures from around the world. And they modeled jewelry and they modeled customs and clothes and just everything around different indigenous cultures. And sort of the Na'vi is, imagine every indigenous culture on the planet mixed into one.
Yeah.
And I'm learning, I'm having to watch videos, I'm learning how to walk, I'm learning how to act, I'm actually cutting like fish on set, live or dead fish, but real fish, gutting them, prepping them and watching videos and how to, it was really stinky sometimes. The Maoris came from New Zealand.
Oh, cool.
And we did like the haka.
The haka. Mm-hmm.
And I was in the ceremony. Like they had to teach me because I'm one of the main actors of the Na'vi.
Right.
They were like, Reuben, learn this thing. And I'm like, okay. We did an ayahuasca ceremony, basically.
You actually took ayahuasca?
No.
Okay. Oh, but you sort of reenacted it.
So we did this. There was a scene that you can go online and find it. It was cut from the original movie where Jake goes through this initiation and eats the psychedelic worm.
And Jake is
Jake Sully is the main
character played by
Sam Worthington.
Sam Worthington.
Who's also from Australia.
Yes. And it's weird because a friend of mine produced his first movie, actually. But anyway, that's by the by. But he's my friend. I bring him up because my friend is really down the rabbit hole too.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
So Sam, working with everybody is sort of taking this as like a really cool film to be working on, right?
So who do you think is down the rabbit? Because this is what I want to know. Wait, do you want to keep going?
Just simply say that, I've finished so I learned about ayahuasca from James Cameron. And he, and I asked, he said he had never done it, but he had researched it. And he said, there's this psychedelic medicine that they drink in the Amazonian jungle. And it's like this whole thing. And we're basing this scene off of that. So he'd explain the background of the scene to us. And so it's getting all this education on indigenous cultures, ceremonies, aliens, learning it out in space. And then watching YouTube, I watched Stephen Greer's Disclosure Project, which blew my mind that it happened in 2001. And how am I just hearing about this now?
Wait, and for our listeners, that project is him just
It's a 2-hour conference he did at the National Press Club where he brought in all these whistleblowers from NASA and whatnot to basically disclose that there is an alien presence.
Right.
Or an ET presence.
Right.
And a couple months after that, 9/11 happened. Right. So, so it didn't really get much traction at the time, but since it's millions of views, right? So you can go on YouTube and see the whole 2-hour presentation.
Right.
So that I watched that. I watched the Zeitgeist films had just come out.
Yeah.
So all of this like unplugging of the Matrix for me was happening subconsciously.
And I'm just curious because you're a martial artist. So in that practice, you've done, at least in that practice, there's a meditative aspect of going into the zone, and that, because it's kind of interesting how a lot of these sort of movies and things do have that kind of zone martial art, like the Matrix and stuff, where you have all these people in them who are practicing going into some kind of no mind state in order to access that physical capability or that.
Yeah, I was already primed, being a huge fan of Bruce Lee. He was sort of my main mentor, and my favorite martial art was Jeet Kune Do. And Bruce has a lot of philosophies. I don't know if you've ever paid attention to Bruce Lee and his teachings, but the philosophy aspects of the martial art is a key part of it.
Yes.
And he's written several books that he published before he died, or actually got, one published, but several after have, his writings and his teachings have come out. And I was an avid reader of that material. So using these concepts and ideas in a martial sense, but a lot of it is very practical for your day-to-day life.
Yeah.
So, avid reader. I didn't meditate so much.
You didn't meditate.
I always wanted to, and I knew about the internal martial arts and going inside, and I just thought, well, when I get old, I'll do that.
Right.
But I started doing Qigong.
Okay.
Which
is definitely a moving
it's an
energy.
internal martial art, but yet there's movement to it. So that was the only thing I could find to help me sit still because I couldn't sit still. Every time I tried to sit still to meditate, I'd fall asleep. And I didn't have the training to keep my mind focused or unfocused, so to say, in that sense. So Qigong was a great physical. It gave me something to do with my physical body.
Right.
And sort of like a mental cookie.
Right.
So I could stay focused and get into the zone.
Right.
So I had some of that training, and so it was a little bit easier for me to make the leap into the woo-woo.
Right.
Because I had this training, and I had a mom who was in a cult.
Oh, really? Oh my gosh. We want to do a whole episode on cults. Yeah.
So that was
coming back.
Which one?
She was part of the Ramtha thing. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, I actually have some clients who have started with Ramtha.
Okay. Yeah. So, which for me as a kid, I was very anti-channeling. I was very anti that stuff. Just my mom, you're crazy.
Right. Look at it. Circle, cycles, crystals. Here we go.
Exactly.
What you resist persists.
So exactly. So I got very far from that, and I just focused on my martial arts stuff, my action, my movie stuff, and then so 2007, all this stuff started happening.
Right.
Which 6, 7, and then one day I was off of work, just catching up on laundry at home, and I had a sighting of what I call a fleet. Okay. Probably 30.
Where, and 40. This is in LA?
In Glendale, California.
In glamorous Glendale, California.
It's all post Avatar.
During the filming of Avatar.
During the filming.
So so it was like in already, but post Zeitgeist, post Disclosure Project, like all the stuff that the YouTube stuff had stored.
Yeah. So your linear mind had started being cracked a little bit and opened up, and
So then I saw that, and I thought it was going to make.
What did you see?
Daylight?
Well, daylight,
broad daylight.
These little specks. So at first I was like, "What are those gnats? What are they?"
Right.
But the more they were there for like 45 minutes.
Okay, just in one spot, hovering.
Pretty much, and then they slowly disappeared one by one.
Right.
Wow.
They're like, "Reuben, we're coming for you."
Well,
We've got some friends who want to talk to you.
I thought everybody saw this. I thought this was going to make the nightly news. Everybody, like, this is going to be a mass thing, huge, all over the news. That night, I eagerly tuned into the news, and nothing.
Yeah, nothing. Because it was that vivid for you.
Yes. Yeah. And that morning, nothing.
Nothing.
What? And I was like, "What? This is insane. How?" And I know I saw it. And I had an old Trio phone at the time, standard definition, so it didn't pick up on it.
Right.
If I had my super 4K, iPhone now, it for sure.
So you busted out your phone at the time and recorded it. Okay.
Snaps,
but it didn't show up any of it. It was just a blue sky in my phone.
So let me ask you this, because as far as you remember, you're doing your laundry. Mm-hmm. Like, I know I'm usually, when things, really magical things start manifesting for me, I'm usually in a high vibe, right? Mm-hmm. Do you remember what state of mind you were in at that time?
I mean, I was working on, this awesome film.
Yeah, so you weren't like bummed and like, I'm a Hollywood loser, which we all go through those feelings,
exactly.
Right?
No, and
maybe you never did, but.
No, I was definitely stoked about that. Also, I was running a production company at the time.
Right.
Just Cause Productions, and I think we were also really busy with other projects too, which was really nice. So I was
you're in a good vibe.
I was in a good vibe, flying high.
Yeah.
And but no external substance. We're part of
no
drugs,
high, good vibe. Natural high vibes.
No drinking. In fact, up until that time, I don't think I had ever been drunk or high on any sort of alternative mind.
Oh, really? Wow.
Stuff. So I was.
What a weirdo.
I know. I was like, I was seriously, I was so like
focused on martial arts
does
give you that discipline,
and I was afraid to lose control at that time. I had seen other people kind of go crazy with drugs and alcohol. I was like, nope, not going to do it. Okay. I'm going to do it naturally.
Fair enough.
If I need to get out there, then I'm going to figure it out. With
I am pretty much a purist on that front. Like, I do think things like ayahuasca and all these things are great. I notice a lot of men are attracted to these things because they really do need something that will like crack their consciousness open. And I've never tried ayahuasca. I'm curious to try DMT just because I think I might get a little bit more visual. See my friend? Reuben's like, okay. He's like, no. But in terms of doing this work, I think, I have a purist thing. Like, I want to be able to access those states, know that I can access those states without the extras. But some people need that to crack.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. But I think when people get dependent on it and then they're not actually doing the work with their own egos,
right,
then you're kind of setting something up for more of a psychotic, psychosis-y experience.
You have some people that go and do ayahuasca like every weekend, right?
Right.
And just like, okay.
But where's your practice within yourself and your own mind? And also, you can't bypass that actual process of having a mindful deconstruction of your own ego, because then you're aware. Like, when I joke about being crazy, I can joke about it because I've looked at that, I've worked with it, I've worked with the projection of it, and I've come to a much more deeply natural centered belief in what I do through having like a direct psychological relationship to that. Well, I think when people are just out there cracking their egos all the time with no meditation, no follow-up, no backup, that concerns me. Like, you can't be using these things like, Well, you can do whatever you want. Like,
right.
You can do whatever you want, but if you don't want to have some kind of psychosis where you're cracking your ego too hard and going to spin off into some kind of fractured state for a while, if you want to keep like living and being happy,
you gotta have a journal.
You gotta have a journal. That's great.
You gotta have practices.
That's a great way to put it. So up until that point, I had not done any of that.
Yeah.
And but so I saw these things in the sky, and they it cracked my world. That was my ayahuasca. That's all I needed to really say, like, what happened here. And there
wasn't any vibey frequencies though for you.
Probably was. I just wasn't. But
you're not feeling it.
No, I just like it was all using my five senses.
Using your five senses.
My visual sense mostly.
Yeah.
Just to see it and have that experience, and then but it just intrigued me. And like my buddy Jeremy, who we talked about, the DPB guy, he has this great saying: "Weaponize your curiosity." Oh. So that experience.
Oh, that's good. Do that for the show, everybody.
Yeah, that's
a weapon.
What does that mean?
That event weaponized my curiosity.
Yeah,
it gave me fuel.
Yeah.
To now go and find out what the hell did I see.
Right.
And I went on just a crazy rampage.
Yeah.
Like I was internet searching, finding, and then I looked up Greer again, who I'd already kind of known his work. And he was doing retreats. He's doing all the C5 stuff. And I saw these.
So Greer is the guy that takes people on these retreats.
Used to.
Not the dad of the two guys who are in Avatar.
I'm sorry?
Not the dad from the FBI. Greer is the guy who takes people out on these retreats, and is a different person from the father of the two guys who worked on Avatar, who worked for the FBI.
J. Allen Hynek. Right. Yeah, he worked for Project Blue Book.
Yeah,
no, completely different. Yeah. Different dudes. But so Greer did do these retreats. I don't think he does them anymore. He's just mostly a public speaker, and he has his documentary stuff. But at the time, so leading up, so 2007, and that sort of started the journey, and I was just doing a lot of research into UFO stuff. And a few years later, 2010, Greer was offering a C5 event in Arizona, Rio Rico, Arizona. So not far from the Vatican Observatory, like out in the desert. Yes, the Vatican has an observatory.
Oh, really?
To search the sky, funded completely by the Vatican.
Is that right? Really?
In Arizona,
wow,
in the desert.
See, I'm not really in touch with all this side.
And it's crazy. I think it's called the Lucifer something. I don't know, something like that.
Do people always react like this?
Yes, it's crazy. When
our
you look
jaws
into
are
this
on the ground.
It's ridiculous. And I may be off. It's been a while since I've researched that.
Okay.
But you go and you look at this.
Are they looking for the second coming, or are they looking for the devil himself to show up in the sky? What do you think they're up to?
I think they know more than what they let themselves on to know.
Sure.
So
Wow.
I think there's all kinds of crazy stuff.
Yeah.
So again, we did the C5, and I had 3 nights in a row. Me and a group of about 100, 200 people or something like that. I forget. It was a pretty large group sitting under the stars, doing our contact protocols. Every night I saw strange lights in the sky, and I'm trying to piece it together. I'm like, is this guy like the Wizard of Oz? Is he got like a light show going on here? And then last night, before he even sets up,
you had some suspicion or egoic resistance. You weren't just straight like, yeah,
absolutely. No, I'm questioning everything this guy says.
Yeah,
I still do.
Yeah,
especially that guy.
Right. Oh yeah.
And we don't have to get into that. But,
yeah.
So the last night, even when he's just setting up and he's just starting his spiel before he's like, oh, look over there, and points to the thing, right? I was like, oh, how does he see it? And oh, there it is. Off to my left, there were these red orbs shooting across the sky, way off in the distance, and there were 2 simultaneously. And this was right at dusk, so it wasn't quite dark yet, but dark enough so these 2 orbs popped, like they were bright.
Yeah.
And shooting, judging by the distance, they seemed really far away, but they were beaming across the sky, like no other speed an airplane or anything that could
that you could,
at that distance that could travel that fast.
Right.
And I elbowed the guy next to me. I'm like, look over there. And he's like, oh my God. So
you had
and all of a sudden Greer is like, nobody's paying attention to Greer. Everybody in the audience is like, look over there, you know.
Right.
And he still hasn't caught on.
He's like,
still,
cue the.
He's like, yeah, we're still talking.
Yeah.
But that whole night, so after that experience, that whole weekend, and he talked about the government cover up and the energy aspects and the stuff that if you're into this world, that you kind of know that there's a lot to it. And, you know, why is it all covered up and all that stuff? So, which I had already kind of been down that rabbit hole. But it was reassuring, and I got to ask questions and interact in that sense. And then I just thought, okay, this is it. I have to come out of the closet.
Right.
I can't keep this a secret. This is too. I have somewhat of a public figure, you know.
Yeah,
at that
that's
time,
right. Because you're a public figure.
Being in the video game world and having these characters, and I get invited to conventions and different stuff. So
like you're out there as, you know.
So I was very scared. I was like, what are people going to think?
Right.
What's going to happen to my career? What's my image? And I'm like, I don't care.
Right.
This message is too important for humanity to keep a secret anymore.
Good for you, man.
I don't care.
Yeah.
I'll be, you know, swept under the carpet, ashamed or whatever. But
do you feel like you've ever lost jobs over it or anything like that? No.
So,
because that's all what you're worried about. It's like
that's what you're worried about, right?
And
I was like so worried.
Yeah.
And then I made this public blog. You know, I had a blog on my website, and I wrote this whole extensive like essay of my experience, and I took the pictures. In the sky of like, this is where it was. And I sort of said, this thing went to there and there, and this is what I saw and all this stuff. And I was ready for a big blowback.
Crickets.
Really? Okay.
And isn't that like people are really not as worried about us as we are about ourselves, right? Like
we're all just thinking about ourselves.
We're just like, oh my God, I'm going to be like, no one gives a shit, really. Yeah. They're all worried about what's happening in their own belly buttons.
Yep. I still got invited to conventions.
Right.
And I still did my Street Fighter tournaments, and I did all that. And then I sort of would mention it, and people were like, oh, that's interesting. But really
you kind of know if people want to pick up that strand of the conversation, they do. And if other people don't, they just talk about other things.
Exactly.
You know? And you can operate in all worlds. I would imagine, though, with the gaming world, at least, there's a lot of kids out there and, you know, who are probably into some far out stuff. I don't know.
Well,
you're like not being a lawyer or a, you know.
Well, you're right. So this is what. In fact, I go to video game and comic cons and anime conventions now, and I offer a panel. So I do all my regular panels, stunt fighting, you know, working in Hollywood as a voice actor, doing you know, martial arts for movies and how to do that, motion capture. What is that? So that's my typical sort of spiel of panels and things, and I do that, but I offer.
Then you go, come on, kids,
another
let's
panel
go down the rabbit hole
at night,
right?
And it is. Let's go down the rabbit hole with Reuben Langdon.
Is that what it's called?
Well, it's called "What Is Reality?" When science fiction becomes science fact. Yes, and I sort of did a modified version of that at the 5D conference.
Yeah.
I do a more watered down version. For the kids,
because you got to kind of bird feed people a little bit,
right?
You know, because just so people will receive it
exactly.
Yeah.
Then they'll receive some more.
So I start off with, you know, all the scientific discoveries, the quantum experiments, and what do we know? And this is sort of fact in the scientific community.
Yeah.
And then I introduce, well, if all this is fact, then this is all possible.
It's all possible.
Yeah.
UFOs, ETs, alternate dimensional realities. Which makes it much more palatable. And most of the kids are already sort of open to those ideas because these are concepts and things that are in anime.
Right. Well, and that's,
right. So, you know, like Interstellar and science fiction, we're all getting these ideas from what we already have in our reality now.
Which brings me back to what I, you know, want to ask you about and really want to explore in this show because of this sort of feedback between entertainment and, you know, science fiction and consciousness. I watch some shows and I'm just like, these guys have got to be directly getting some kind of information. It's too spot. I think Sense8 has got such spot on concepts about hybrids, energetic hybrids and stuff. And it's fresh. Do you know what I mean? It's very on point with what is coming through for a lot of people that we're kind of energetic hybrids, basically. Part human, part other consciousness, here to seed new consciousness in the planet. That's really what the starseeds are. So, but like James Cameron, what do you think? I mean, do you think like he presented all this information to you to study like it's historical, Or do you think he's down the rabbit hole a little bit and keeps it a secret, you know?
Maybe a little bit of both.
A little bit of both.
I think the conversations I've had with him and what he's talked about in public is he got downloaded in a dream for his most of his films, The Abyss, and Avatar.
Right.
And he said it was just so vivid, and he woke up and he just started. He's an amazing artist. So if you ever see him draw, there's a couple things online if you look, like, James Cameron inspiration, dream, whatever. And he started drawing the Na'vi.
So he's kind of a channel in his own way.
He will never say that.
He'll never say, but he cracks his when he sleeps at least.
Absolutely. I mean, we go into what is a dream, right?
Yeah.
We go and we
the
leave.
Sleeps.
We shift our consciousness to another vibrational frequency and have these experiences.
Yeah.
And we tune out of this reality for a minute.
That's right.
So we're tuning into other worlds.
That's right.
And in my belief, these worlds are real.
Sure.
A lot of them are made up in our head for us to process different, emotions and things like this. But the same mechanism, just like going into a channeling alternative state, we're doing that every night when we go to sleep.
Well, and actually that was a big step for me before I was channeling, had my event. I had read in the Seth book, or was it Seth? To, before you go to sleep, say you want to go visit with the masters. They called it something different in the Seth book, the keepers or something. I think it's the keepers. So I started doing that. I would write it down before I go to sleep. Tonight while I sleep, I want to go and visit with these master consciousnesses and get some shit,
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And then, like, boom, like,
you don't need to take drugs.
3 weeks later, I have this massive event. Yeah, you don't need to take drugs. That's the thing. If you have these ways to bypass the ego, and the sleep work is massive. I still use it a lot if I'm trying to work. If I am trying to navigate my reality, like what is really coming into manifestation, what is maybe still some kind of psychological attachment, projection. What is. I'll write it down before I go to sleep tonight. While I sleep, I want to visit with my higher self, and when I wake up, I want to know this. And that's often when I have my most clear knowingness. Yeah, because I can't channel really.
Do you
for
journal?
myself.
Do you do dream journal?
I don't really know.
Talk about journaling earlier. That, for me, that has been a key. I've really been diving into dreams this past 2 years or so.
Yeah. No, my dreams are super vivid. I have visitations. I have a lot of that stuff. But the knowingness is often just that state first thing in the morning. Yeah. Because even dreams, then when you think about it, you can get a little bit into your psychological interpretation. But
But I like to just write them down, because sometimes you can go back and revisit them. And say,
totally.
Oh, that makes more sense now.
I know. Yeah, I'm a bit lazy on that one. Yeah.
But the knowingness too. Like I knew for sure the morning I was planning to drive up to Haleakala in the middle of the night and do some nighttime laps, and also wanting to connect in my dreams. And I was thinking about sleeping in the car and just connect,
just vibing out there.
Yeah. And then it got late, and the clouds came in, and I was like, oh, don't want to drive. It's an hour drive. And I was like, don't want to drive all the way up there, and I may not get any shots, and then I'll be exhausted for the next day because we're pounding it hard with this project. I was like, probably smarter not to do that and just schedule that for another time. But that night, because I had the intention, my consciousness totally went there.
Right.
And I woke up the morning knowing that I had this portal mist thing that I had experienced in my dream world was totally a portal in Haleakala that I experienced. So that knowingness, right?
It's a knowingness. There's no is it or isn't it? Should I? It's just I know.
It was automatic. Yeah. I knew that what it was, and I knew exactly. And it was sort of connected to another friend who shared an experience he had on Haleakala.
Right.
At dinner, and I had a message for him.
Oh, cool.
So right away is that knowing. I wake up, okay, and I only jotted a couple notes.
Right.
Really short, and I'm like, okay.
Oh, you got a message for your friend during that portal visit sort of thing.
That knowing that I have to share this with my friend because this is a key to his experience. This will help him decipher what. And sure enough, he was like, that makes so much more sense. Yeah, that's exactly the information I needed. And I'm like, yeah.
And also, we do definitely visit with other people's consciousnesses. Like if I've got a bit of a situation going on with somebody, you can definitely use sleep time for that too. Go like, tonight while I sleep, I want to go visit with so-and-so and kind of figure out
I never thought about that.
Oh, it's great. No, really, with the stuff you do before you go to sleep. Yeah.
Right
it's
here, we
so
don't have
powerful.
to like, drink the ayahuasca.
That's right, exactly.
Or go to that ceremony and schedule, go to the Amazon jungle to do this stuff.
Right.
Every night we have
Every
access
night
to it.
you can do it. And that just before you go to sleep. I know when I'm being a little spiritually lazy is I stop doing my night work and I just, I do a lot of the love and acceptance. That's my morning practice to dissolve my ego. But, so that's cool. So James Cameron, you think like a little bit, because he's a public figure, like even if he was more down the rabbit hole, he'd probably keep it a little on the DL.
So I'll share this now. I haven't seen him in a while, so I think we're at this point in our disclosure reality now with the Navy coming out and everything these past few weeks.
Wait, what's happened with the Navy? They said they saw some ships?
Yeah,
what?
yeah. So it's been for a couple of years. This ATIP program has been coming out and everything else. But the Navy officially said last week, 2 weeks ago, that they're going to pay more attention to UFOs, to pilots reporting UFOs.
Oh, cool.
And make it easier for them to report on them and all this stuff.
Get shamed.
And not get shamed.
Yeah.
And just by that acknowledgement, sort of acknoses that the Navy says, yes, there's something going on.
Yeah.
And some Navy pilots have gone on the record already and said, many Navy pilots, many whistleblowers have gone on the record that I was involved with the citizen hearing thing, which we can talk about later as well. But these are like official New York Times articles. Time just released an article yesterday. I posted on my Facebook.
It's totally shifting. Like so much more is becoming not.
So the Navy and these trained pilots, still active duty, are now being allowed to talk about these experiences. And we have gun camera footage being released by the Pentagon of these UFOs that the Pentagon hasn't gone as far as say they're ETs, but they're definitely, they're saying it's not from this world.
Really?
Which is a big step,
that's big
leap.
That's big.
No other country has this capability, this technology.
Right.
So there's only one explanation. It's not from here.
Right.
The pilots also say it's totally a UFO. It's totally extraterrestrial or extra dimensional or whatever. It's just not from. So you have this big movement now that's happening in the mainstream media, like Time and New York Times and Washington Post. They're all talking about it.
We're kind of behind. I think we're behind the game with coming out of the cosmic closet. We're out. We're out.
I mean, the world is coming out very fast.
It is coming. Well, because that's the shift. Yeah. That is what's happening. The veils are thinning. Consciousness is, the denseness of the five physical senses, 3D reality is thinning. And I know we've had major significant, actually just one of those kind of coinky dinky things was last year when I was just starting to really channel the 5D grid is active. People are moving onto it in a mass way. For everybody who knows, you've got like the 3D grid, which is the sort of five physical senses reality that we've been in, the polarity-driven linear time-space reality. The 5D grid is what supports the multidimensional and this, being able to access all these sort of different planes and realms of reality. We talked quite a bit about that in the last episode. I was just really channeling all these activations for it when boom, Tiff invited me to be on this 5D open door retreat. And I was like, whoa, I'm just uploading 5D material in my library right now. And then some other lady in Australia, because I'm getting people from all over the place saying, like I said before, like I just woke up and now I can hear my neighbor's thoughts. Like I was a housewife doing dishes and now, now I can see, feel. So and this woman was writing to me going, oh my God, like I feel like I'm going crazy. And I was sort of trying to help her a little bit. And I said, look, this is I think I might have sent her a recording or whatever. I was like, this is like the 5D grid shift thing. Probably I did a free consult with her. And then she messaged me and she was really kind of losing it. Like when you're getting like long emails of all this stuff that's happening. And then she's like, it's okay. I found a retreat to go to this weekend. It was the same weekend as our retreat. It was pretty much 5D open door. Like when I read the description of the retreat, it was almost exactly the same. And I actually don't listen to a lot of people's stuff. I actually don't follow other channelers because I like to keep my stream very uninfluenced. Like this is what I'm getting, and then I know. But so when I do occasionally pop onto like a Facebook group or something, and I see that my work is being mirrored exactly the same somewhere else, I'm like, okay, if I'm batshit crazy, there's a flock of us,
Well,
so
look at the 5D conference. We all validated each other and essentially in these different ways.
Totally.
So we're all getting the downloads.
We're all getting downloads, and it's good. And I like to work like that and then connect and be like, yeah, and then go back and get what I'm getting and then go back and connect. But definitely, so, James Cameron is making this movie. He's downloaded it, right? Obviously, he's received that. It's popped through. So that sort of answers one of my questions because I'm like, it's not necessarily like, I'm going to make a movie about this stuff I've been learning about. It kind of came to him kind of frequency first, manifestation second. He creates this movie that's carrying these frequencies. You're in the rabbit hole. You're into it. These two dudes who are like the son of major, ET disclosure dude. So the vibration is in the production.
Some interesting military people show up on the very last day before they tore down the set.
Right.
They were, we were sort of told that there's the virtual reality technology.
Where did you shoot it again exactly?
In Playa del Rey in California.
Wow.
Which is right there next to LAX.
Yeah.
4 years of my life in that studio.
Wow. Right, because you're doing all the CGI.
Yeah, doing
stuff.
all the movements and stuff. I mean, it wasn't constant. The first year was pretty constant. Then they went to New Zealand to do live action shoots. I stayed in LA to work on my company stuff. They came back and it was off and on for like 3 years of just doing more motion capture stuff and some live action reshoots.
Wow.
But the last day before they tore the set down, they had all these military people come up, Navy uniforms and stuff. They were very interested in technology, and I had to do sort of a demonstration for them. And then I found out later, that there's other higher up people in the Navy involved with, James Cameron and the Abyss, and Cameron's getting advisors on some of this stuff. And there's a lot of interconnectedness there that probably Cameron knows more than what he lets himself on to be. I'll tell this story. And again, this is my interpretation of these situations. I could be completely wrong.
Right.
But so this was like 2000, I want to say 11-ish. After Avatar came out, huge success, number one movie in the world.
And really did get people's minds like
thinking
about the planet, thinking about,
everybody really, it touched some buttons for people, their heart buttons. So me and some of the other cast members of Avatar, we were hanging out at NAB, the National Associated Broadcasting thing in Las Vegas, big convention, and Cameron was leasing his new 3D line of production or something there, and he was there. We all caught wind. We're like, "Hey, Jim, can we meet up?" And he was like, "Yeah, come to my hotel room at so and so time, and we'll catch some drinks." So crack open some bottles of wine. Everybody's just sitting around the room, like sharing, what happened since the Avatar. Been like a year or two since the movie came out, and we're all just chilling. By this time now, I had gone public with my...
You were public.
I was out of the closet.
You're out of the closet. Boom.
But not everybody knew. But all my friends knew.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, yeah. Reuben's still into UFO stuff.
Yeah.
And I talked to one of my buddies. I'm like, how are we going to... We got to get him in a corner.
Yeah,
we got to get...
What do you know, James?
What do you know, Jim?
What do you know?
And he's like, we got to make it private. So we're in there. So I'm like I'm sweating bullets. I'm like, how do I ask this question? And then luckily my buddy... it's into the night. We're sort of catching up on all the personal stuff.
Yeah.
Luckily, my buddy pulls the question. He's like, so, Jim, what do you know about UFOs?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yes,
yeah.
Did it. And then, before that, I think we started like massaging him a little bit. Like, Jim, I think, Avatar like is shifting the consciousness of the planet.
Right. Yeah. Threw in some safe words.
And he said,
consciousness shift.
Yeah. And he said, no, Reuben, I think you're wrong. And I said, really? And he's like, the consciousness is ready to receive Avatar.
Oh, boom.
And I was
frequency first, manifestation second.
And
Jimbo.
he's tapped
He
in.
knows what's up.
He's tapped in.
But then I was like, well, maybe a little bit of both because, the influences I've seen the movie have on other people, and it's really touched their heart center. And, it's making, and he's like, and then he said, well, if the movie came out 10 years earlier, it probably would have tanked.
Right.
And I was like,
and that is true. I think that's true.
I think both are true.
Maybe one day the Gay Bed and Breakfast of Terror, a magnificent movie that I was in, consciousness will be ready to receive that.
You have to do a remake, right? What was the title again?
The Gay Bed and Breakfast of Terror.
There you go.
Yeah. It's a classic.
Yes. Well, is that on Amazon or iTunes?
I think it is on Amazon Prime.
So we sort of primed him. We got into consciousness talk, and then we started to roll into aliens. And he said, I think for sure, it's mathematically impossible for ETs not to exist.
Right.
We go into that conversation. And then he said, well, and then if they're here, that we're like ants to them. Like, they're probably doing their thing and we're just down here doing our thing. And, we can't see them. And essentially, he basically said, we're just ants.
Yeah.
And they're so highly evolved that we wouldn't be of any use or that kind of stuff. But he was like, okay. And then I shared with him my UFO story. I said in 2007, I saw this and we were on the Avatar and it blew my mind and all this stuff. And he's like, oh, that's cool. And then we kind of get off the ET subject.
So he wasn't resistant either.
He wasn't resistant, but he wasn't. We were like, we're gonna get.
We're gonna
get what he really knows because he knows it all. He's James Cameron.
He knows
everything.
He's the king of the world.
And he just sort of like blew it off. And we both. I look over at my friend. I'm like, oh man,
he wanted more.
We wanted more.
Yeah.
But so then we're all leaving, and I was, and for whatever reason, everybody went out to the hallway waiting for the elevator, and I was the last one out the door. And we stop, shake his hand, and he looks me straight in the eye, and he goes, "Reuben, I really appreciate you sharing your story." And it was like usually, and this was like a long time after the story, and we'd been talking about other stuff, and there was nothing. It didn't seem fitting. In the mood. For him to say that even. And it really, I was like, and he looked, and it was like this almost dramatic pause. And maybe this is just in my head of, again, my interpretation of this. Maybe I'm just, wanting it to be more than what it is. Sure. So maybe I'm manifesting.
But maybe that had the frequency of something meaningful for you, regardless.
Well, I mean, what also got me thinking, maybe he does know.
Right.
And he just.
Well, and also, I think, it's when we all give each other, and that's why I'm coming out of the closet, because if I can come out, then I'm giving permission to somebody else to maybe not be as far down the rabbit hole as I am, but a little bit closer, or like some of their own, we all have our own. Well, is it or isn't it?
Right. And that's probably what.
And there's some great,
that little bit of vulnerability. Someone else is willing to be vulnerable and
I think
make it safer.
And I think he appreciated that.
Yeah.
And back to what you were saying before, when you put it out on your blog, and who cares? No one usually cares about our shit that we care so much about.
Sure.
People don't care. So it was nice that he just saw you in that moment.
He just saw it.
Yeah.
So let me just bring it over because we should probably maybe wrap this one up in a little bit here. But I want to ask then about because you have this series of interviews with people like myself, and say the name of the series and when
it's
people
Interview with Ed, Extra Dimensionals.
Interview with Ed, and
basically I interview, like yourself, who go into the channeling state.
Yeah.
And then I have a conversation with those beings,
the beings.
Or those collectives or whatever that energy is.
Yeah.
And
perfect.
every person has a different flavor.
Yes.
Or being that they're channeling in or collective. And I dive deep into that.
Yeah.
And explore those realities.
And he's just been picked up by Gaia TV for this series, which is super awesome. So again, another expansion, because you've been working away on those for a while. And
for the series, it's been a personal sort of pet project for about 5 years now.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
so
and I'm sure it's a bit like my library I have at circleevolution.com. I have over 500 pretty awesome recordings on there, and you just kind of keep doing this work. But now Gaia TV, which probably has a bigger audience for you.
Oh yeah, it's been good. It's been really well received.
Yeah.
I get emails even this morning. Every morning I wake up to 3 or 4 emails of people saying thank you so much.
Lots of permission slips going out
really
there.
Really cool stuff. That people are like, this is thanks for the validation. This is what I needed. And and I'm just like, and I don't have time to reply to everybody.
Right.
But I'm just, you just send them a quick thank you and
send the cosmic thanks back.
Yeah, exactly.
So let me ask you, from my personal perspective, how do you find the other channelers deal with it just being such a weird thing to do? How are their dating lives? How are they?
Their dating lives? I don't know if I've gotten into that.
You don't ask that stuff? Because that's what I'm really curious. What I'm interested in. It's difficult for people. If I meet a dude, the last thing I'm starting the conversation with is I go into trance and beings speak through me. No way.
Well, most of the people I've channeled so far, I think, are already in a relationship.
They're already in a relationship, so they haven't talked to you about how then they had to go through an adjustment and be like, "Hey, honey, how
the episode that just came out this week on Gaia with Diet. So she's married and she has children. She was a former Mormon.
Oh,
and
interesting. Yeah.
Really heavy into the church. Her whole family.
Yeah.
We did the interview in Utah.
Right.
So when this all happened to her, like all of a sudden she starts channeling, right? Talking to beings and ghosts.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was definitely an adjustment period that she had to tell her husband and say, and even her kids, like, guys, this is what's happening.
Yeah.
And, I'm sorry, but this is just my reality now.
This is reality, yeah.
But it's been, it's been about 1.5 years since I've talked to her, but she said, it's being well respected, received. Other people in the community. That's why she's actually staying in the Mormon community.
Interesting.
Wow.
Because other people who are sort of wrapped up in that, it's sort of a cult. It's not as extreme as some of the other ones, but there's different restrictions put on, and they're against gay people and all that stuff, and there's a lot of just hard, dogma related to that and all religions, essentially. But that's a tough one.
Yeah. Well, weren't we talking about in one episode that I just said I think all the religions will upgrade. I don't think we're going to get rid of religion. They're getting upgraded, so maybe this lady is in there putting her freaky frequencies out there and helping upgrade their community.
In the community. I don't think she goes to the church anymore, or the temple, I should say. I don't think she goes to the temples, but she's definitely in the community, and other people are in that community are sort of following her work, and she's offering, hey, this alternate reality, and not condemning the church, because there are good, the community sense. There are good.
There's a lot of good things about. I went to Catholic schools, and even though I have the guilt, I do have. There is a certain what I just kind of call a moral compass, which is just basically not being a shit. And I think we are missing some structure for that when you take out those what religion has been kind of an overseer of. Obviously, there's people are controlling, manipulating, but there's some of those basic premises of help people, be community minded, be a Navi.
So theology researchers and experts and things like that. So I have some really good conversations with them, and one of the things that we're finding is this big push for atheism is actually in a way I think hurting the collective, having these ideas and different belief systems in religion and everything else. I think still sort of keeps the magic, because there's still a mystical aspect of whether it's Jesus or Buddha or Muhammad, or there's still this sort of other veil still accessible. Whatever package you put on it. When you go the atheist route, you're sort of everything just becomes materialism.
That's a really tricky one, because I really believe people have the right to incarnate and go totally fire physical senses if that's what they're
that's what we're doing.
If that's what their game is. Game on. But it's but when you pretty much respect everything.
I respect it too. I respect that journey, but I'm just thinking.
But it can be. Well, because some people find a different philosophy in atheism because I think in atheism there's also a lot of movement towards environmentalism and like the science says climate change is real.
If you can go that, but I've seen some extreme just like not even going, like if you can find the connection to nature and everything, absolutely, and environmental, but some extreme that are just like, it's just the stuff, and it's
totally.
Yeah.
There's just, it's a interesting. I mean, I did date a guy who was an atheist, and he was like, listen to like atheism podcasts while I was there, just basically like, all of this shit is bullshit. And, it was, I mean, at the end of the day, like pretty hard to hit it off. Right? When someone just basically doesn't believe in your existence and is quite, I don't want to use the word violent, but equally fundamentalist about it. Because I'm actually like, it's cool if you're an atheist, but if you sort of can't accept me in the way I can accept you, then we philosophically have a difference on how to treat people.
Yeah.
Sort of maybe.
Yeah, I guess that's what I was trying to get to.
Yeah.
I think there's still, in some of these religious circles, there's still somewhat of a compassion for your fellow man.
Yes, compassion for
like you were saying, even the Catholic, they still had this
some Francis of Assisi, and all these biblical or these figures. I mean, I think a lot of them are energies, cosmic energies.
Absolutely.
And I've channeled Christ consciousness and Mother Mary, and as part of the gangs so I know that religion is, these are ascended masters, beings that come down with a frequency, and then religion tends to be the interpretation and unfortunately the control of the power of that. And that's where we get into it. But those beliefs and the heart-centeredness of it that religion brings as a first step for us moving into consciousness that isn't just. But that's why it's so weird that we have all the wars about it and stuff. It's like,
right. Well, it's a pendulum. I think you go to one extreme, or you go into those extremes with the religious and the dogma and the guilt and all that stuff, and then you realize that that's bullshit, right?
Yeah.
And then you swing over to complete separation of any kind of belief system at all.
Yeah.
And that's the other end of that pendulum. And then I think there's a nice somewhere in the middle.
And that's pretty much after I converted to Catholicism because I was going to Catholic schools and I was Church of England, converted to Catholicism in grade 6 because I wanted to be part of something.
Yeah.
And I probably did when I go to church but I wasn't energy sensitive, was having a connection to, and I've been into churches in Europe, in France. I went into a church in Paris, and I was amazed at the energetic vortex in there. I was like, holy shit, there is some holy shit going on down here. And, there was a Mother Mary statue, and there's definitely an energy vortex. You just have, over the thousands of years, people going to that spot to connect to something.
You're creating through intention.
You're creating through intention. Vortex. You're creating a vortex. So people are doing that. I even think born-again Christian faith healers, on the one hand, they could be manipulating people for money, but if they have an intention to heal when they touch someone, if that is there, the healing forces aren't going to go, not you, no way. They are going to pass through a vessel that is open. And that's kind of the interesting thing, why you have this people who are like maybe financially trying to control the power source, but who also are opening channels, willing to open channels. So I mean, that's like a whole big conversation.
It's a whole nother rabbit we sort of tipped into. But again, all truths are true.
All truths are true, and but that's why I think having within these structures something that is like, how am I not just into the power of it, but how am I being centered in my heart is, an important thing that could be missing. Just whether people identify themselves as atheists or not, that the spiritual life in whatever way it presents to somebody is, people don't have access to it. They don't have access to any kind of spiritual life. And that, especially if part of them is trying to open up, can be a point of suffering. Yeah. Whoa, man, we covered so much. I think we'll have to have you back for sure. But we're going to wrap up this one, but we're going to have Reuben come back and have Melissa and Reuben, who have not, Melissa hasn't asked the circle questions. I'm going to bring in the circle of light, and these guys are going to ask some questions, and that will be.
And I didn't know that that's what Reuben does. So that's perfect. So I'm like, what am I going to ask him? but I'm just going to follow.
I'm curious to watch what you could ask. So
yeah. Oh, man, I'm going to be totally in the moment.
Well, this is going to be, when I bring in the circle, it's going to be all the audience's introduction to who they are, what they're here for. So,
So I'm an audience member.
You're an audience member, ask away. So thank you so much for sharing your story, Reuben, about coming out of the Cosmic Closet. So, but pretty much to wrap it up, it doesn't sound like you've had any really negative impacts from coming out.
No, occasionally I get the, well, actually not occasionally. Every day I have to delete the, these are demonic and it's the comments on my YouTube page. These are all demons and Jesus saves you and you're all going to hell. But
that doesn't faze you though, right?
No, because for every one of those, I get 5 messages that say, "Oh my God, thank you so much.
Right.
This information is so empowering."
Yes.
And
I don't feel
and I'm so glad you're doing this, and that is my motivation. So
awesome, Reuben. Yeah. So tell everybody where everyone can find everything that you're doing personally. I've got
my webpage, which my homepage basically for my website is ReubenLangdon.com.
That's REUBN,
like the sandwich.
Reuben sandwich without the sandwich.
LANGDON.com. That portal will take you to pretty much everything. But interviewwithed.org, the citizen hearing, which we didn't really talk about, which was basically the disclosure project Stephen Greer did in 2001 on steroids. It's over 40 hours. It also was at the National Press Club. 6 former members of Congress. It was a mock congressional hearing on disclosure with over 40 witnesses, most ex-military government agency folks. Again, 5 days, 40 hours, presenting evidence and testimony to the fact that the human race is being engaged by extraterrestrial presence.
Wow.
So that's also connected to my website, citizenhearing.org.
So for people who aren't even having energetic experiences but need a more linear, visceral presentation about this, just the facts, ma'am.
I call it the ABCs of ufology.
Right.
40 hours, you sit through that, you'll get a good idea of what's been happening on our planet for the past, definitely since the Roswell event in 1947, and perhaps before that. But most of this testimony is just the facts, ma'am. We have testimony, we have witnesses, we have documented documents from various governments around the world, all set, in one nice, easy.
Right.
Well,
accessible.
It's not that easy. It's a 40 hours worth of material to get through.
Yeah. But Game of Thrones is done, so it's binge time, people.
Exactly. There you go.
That's the spirit.
There you go. And my Facebook is also Reuben Langdon, Instagram Reuben Langdon, Twitter is Reuben Langdon. It's all Reuben Langdon.
It's all Reuben Langdon.
One word.
Yeah.
And I post daily on articles, like disclosure articles and quantum.
And you also post a lot of stuff, about the sort of science that's kind of backing up these things and all that, which we didn't even get. We'll do that another time, I guess. But Reuben is a veritable treasure trove of information, and you've really done a lot to kind of gather it and synergize it in these portals and make it these kind of one-stop shops for if you want to get into it, if you want to get more about it, if you want more 3D world validation of this shiznatch.
Or you can go deep in the peanut butter.
You can go deep in the peanut butter. And on that note, thank you so much, Reuben. You're awesome. Yay.
Thank you, Reuben.
And my beautiful co-host, Melissa Rutigliano. She's just in that day one. Check out her stuff, Circle Cycles Crystal, at themarslab.com.
Hey.
I'm Georgia Jean, circleevolution.com. Love you guys. Love everyone. Mwah. See you next time. Bye.
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 Coming up on the next episode of Coming Out of the Cosmic Closet.
Because I know we have a lot of cosmic help right now.
Indeed.
Maybe it's always been there, but we're tapping into this cosmic family.
Indeed.
And I'm just wondering, who are you?
Who are we? Who are you?
Yeah, the word urgency keeps popping into my head. Like, do you feel like there is this sense of urgency in humanity to, like, just the fact that you're here? Why did you feel like this moment in time, you needed to be here for us to hear your message? Like, did you pick up on some urgency of lack?
The illusion of lack that is very big out there right now is occurring because you are going through a pivot point of transcending this illusion. We're like, damn, I can't believe how many nuggets there are in every single recording. I'm always like, oh, that's a good quote. Oh, you need to be more organized about making memes. But I'm just getting so much all the time that I'd have to be like a 24-hour meme factory.